888-957-9570. Stephen Langford in for Bonte Hill. Bonte is back tomorrow. Coming up in 10 minutes, we're going to be giving away a Kirby's gift card, but we want your opinion here. We're getting a lot. We already got a lot of texts as we asked this question going into the break, but who on the 49ers, there's zero doubt in your mind that he's going to ball out this year? Who on the 49ers, there's no doubt that this season he is going to possibly have a Pro Bowl type of year?
Yeah, line them up.
888-957-9570, because we are getting actually quite a few of the same answers here. From the 925, we got Bosa, no question. From the 650, Nick Bosa, Depoy, and then from the 707, Bosa, 100%, no doubt that he's going to ball out this year.
Yeah, I'm very excited tonight. Big game.
Huge.
In the sense that it's the final preseason game. But I do want to see Trey Lance. And I know we were talking with Mark and Bonte and Dibbs during crossover, and there were, I guess, conflicting opinions, if you will. And I hear everything that Bonte and Mark are saying about it's probably unnecessary. 5-10 years from now, we're probably not going to even have preseason games. Agreed with all those things. You know me, I'm a less is more guy as I eradicate certain things out of my life left and right, as I'm giving away sweatshirts to Sam Lubman as my wife's making me clean out closets. But the point being is that the game does exist. It is happening tonight. And me, as a casual, diehard 49er fan, I just want to see Trey Lance play. You know, I want to see him play. Is there a risk? Of course there's a risk. But if they're going to play the games, then I want my guy to have a couple of series out there, look good, throw for a touchdown pass, and let me have nice, warm, fuzzy feelings heading into week one.
Yeah, to me, I'm kind of the same way here, and I do want to talk about Trey Lance, but that's the interesting thing about this conversation here, as 888-957-9570, zero doubt in your mind that this player is going to ball out this season. Who is your pick going into this year? But I have a feeling that there aren't going to be too many who have zero doubt that Trey Lance is going to ball out this year. I think that there's some cautious optimism around his season coming up this year. Like the expectation level, there's a lot of fans who feel Jimmy G set the bar and said, you know what? Jimmy G went to the NFC Championship and took this team there. Mm-hmm. You might have a better roster, one of the best overall rosters that you've had in quite a while. Like, if you don't make the NFC Championship game, well, it's going to be on Trey Lance. That's not necessarily the case, but that's what people are expecting, is it's got to be the NFC Championship. But I have a feeling that there are a lot of fans who are...
That seems so unfair.
It does, doesn't it?
It feels so unfair.
It feels like there's a large segment of the fan base who is cautiously optimistic around Trey. I don't think there's going to be a lot of votes for Trey Lance with zero doubt that he's going to ball out this year.
Well, also, I think quarterback play, even the greats tend to struggle. Patrick Mahomes, everyone agrees. He's great.
Right.
How many times last year during the middle of that season did you hear from somebody, he's got some fundamental problems with the way he throws the ball, and he's not reading defenses, and teams are taking away the over-the-top, and he just is unwilling to take the underneath stuff?
I don't know if this was true or not, but Tyreek Hill one time told Inside the NFL, he was talking to, I think it was Boomer Esiason, I think Julian Edelman was on that broadcast too. I think Phil Simms was there as well. Tyreek Hill was saying at first he didn't think Mahomes was that good.
Really?
Yeah, he thought, I don't get what the hype is about this dude. He said that at first. He's like, he's got an arm. There's no doubt about that, but it's the other facets of the game that he needs to work on. And then eventually, Patrick Mahomes became Patrick Mahomes, and he did what he did. So Tyreek Hill ended up being wrong.
Yeah.
But I just...
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, that guy. But, also, Tua is the most accurate quarterback he's ever seen. It's like you just played with Patrick Mahomes, dude. But anyway... I just think that there's cautious optimism around Lance. Well, I really think so.
You know what it is? I think that, 49er fans in general, we just went through this with Jimmy Garoppolo. He's the savior! And then it ends up being, not that he's the weak link of the team, but like it's a work in progress. And I think a lot of people are so excited for Trey Lance, but they don't want to have their hearts broken early on. And so I think we're willing to give him a little more leeway early. Once the games are starting to play, I think we're all going to be insane, myself included. Yeah. He missed this row. Oh, my God. If he hits this guy in stride, it's a touchdown. What is he seeing? Like, Niner fans are absolutely insane.
There's a lot of 2020 hindsight when it comes to the football season with every fan base. It's not just the 49er fan base.
There's no doubt. And you don't mean 2020 season.
No, I mean 2020 hindsight as in afterwards. It's like, well, hindsight's 2020, but then blah, blah, blah. You react in certain ways, which most of the time is the wrong way to react.
So you asked me the question, and we'll put Lance to the side for right now because I'm very optimistic about Trey. I think he's going to succeed. I think Kyle Shanahan knows that his entire thing is predicated on him and the quarterback succeeding. Period. Mm-hmm. It's so hard to predict on the offensive side of the ball whose turn it is on any given series in any given game. There were Debo games, a lot of Debo games last year. There were Kittle games, and then there were games where Kittle would go, silent for quite some time. We have no idea who's going to be the number one running back. I mean, heading into last year, if you'd have asked me on preseason which rookie running back will have the biggest impact, it's like Sermon, duh. Yeah. He's getting all the touches in preseason. And then, oh my God, who's this Elijah Mitchell guy after Mostert gets hurt? So I have no idea what they're going to do on offense. And I feel like they try to exploit the weakness of the team that they're playing. So that's going to be a moving target. Ayuk is another name, obviously, I want to reference because I think he's had a great offseason. To me, the most dependable guy on the entire team in terms of I know what I'm getting is Bosa. And you think I'm going to pick Bosa, but that's not who I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick Eric Armstead. I think quietly Eric Armstead has been for 3 straight years one of the most consistent, reliable players on the roster. He's been healthy for almost every single game. All the way through. He has been a run stuffer, and when he plays on the inside, he has been not just good, he's been elite. To me, Eric Armstead is the most underrated guy on the team, and no one's going to pick him because Bosa is flashy, and I love Bosa. That's my guy. I think he is going to have a no doubt about it monster season.
Really?
I do.
Man. Eric, I didn't expect you were going to go Eric Armstead.
He was dominant in the playoffs. I think people need to go back and watch what he did to Green Bay. He suffocated them. He was excellent in the Dallas game, and he was excellent in the LA Ram game.
I think that everyone puts Eric Armstead kind of up against DeForest Buckner, right? Because that's essentially what you did. You drafted Javon Kinlaw, so everyone's looking at him to replace Buckner, but you also paid Armstead. So, whenever you're talking about the Buckner move, it's like, well, they didn't pay Buckner, they decided to pay Armstead. I think he has been better than a lot of people thought that he was going to be, and a lot of what's reported out there about Eric Armstead.
Him and Jimmy Ward are very similar to Brandon Belt in that early in their careers, oh my God, why can't they do more? Why are they always hurt? Right? And it's not a like for like, but they're very comparable. Armstead didn't really have a set position. Is he a D tackle? Is he a D end? Are we a 3-4? Are we a 4-3 defense? I didn't even know what the scheme was. Same thing with Jimmy Ward. Is he a corner or is he a safety?
Right.
What is he?
Is he a nickel guy? Is he a safety? What's he doing?
And they went through so many coaches and so many different philosophies defensively, they had no idea. And then now as time has moved on, everybody's realizing Jimmy Ward and Eric Armstead are really good. They're very, very, very good players. And I think last year, because of necessity with injuries in the inside of that defensive line, Armstead gets kicked to the inside. He was really good. Really, really, really good. So I know no one's going to take him, but to me, he is the most consistent player because he's always out there, and I know what he brings to this team. And I just love his size. I think Eric Armstead is no doubt about it going to ball out this year.
See, to me, I was actually going to stick on the defensive side as well, and I didn't want to pick Bosa.
It seems too easy for me.
Well, and this one might seem easy also.
Give it to me.
Just because he is the guy that's wearing the green dot, and he is the leader of that defense. But I think Fred Warner is about to have a monster year.
How good does he look at practice?
Last year for him, kind of a down season. 2020, he was an all-pro, Pro Bowler. He was fantastic in 2020. But 2021, last year, I'm not saying he wasn't good. Not saying he wasn't good. But for him, there were a couple of plays where you look back, and even he said that he was kind of disappointed with how the season went. And you know what I'm going to use? I understand that nobody likes this list. You don't like this list. I don't think Lubman likes the list. But the NFL Top 100, right? We don't like how the way the list shakes down because we always talk about the ranking and, it's like, oh, this guy should have been ranked higher. To me, once you reach the pick 80, after that, you got the top 80 players, those are the guys in the NFL. Fred Warner was picked among them after the 2020 season. he wasn't picked in the top 100 in 2021, and I genuinely think players look at that and they actually care.
Well, he's another guy who in the playoffs played way better than he did during the regular season.
I think that, though, I think players care about that sort of stuff. Like, I think DeForest Buckner wasn't ranked one year, and then after, he was an absolute stud. Yeah. Like, I think there's some added motivation there. So not only is it he had a down season by his standard last year, but this year, I think he's going to just take it up a whole nother level. I think he has that added motivation, and you're going to be behind that defensive line. Like, your front seven is just stout, and your front four specifically. I mean, if Javon Kinlaw is going to play like he's been playing in the preseason,
just
like
flash.
he played in that last game.
Yeah, he just needs to flash.
Woo, and then you open up some holes for Fred Warner to blitz. Yeah. I think you're going to see a lot from Fred Warner this year.
His ability to play coverage as a linebacker at his size is just uncanny. The thing also with him, and I was listening to him and D'Amico Ryans talk about this, year one, I think D'Amico and him, it felt like D'Amico is the obviously defensive coordinator, yes. But Fred Warner said that he felt like he was trying to do too much, over pursuing, trying to make a play where there was no play, and I think trying to justify that big contract that he got, which it makes total sense if you just say it out loud, like wanting to do and show everyone, oh, I know I got paid, but I'm really, really, really worth it.
Right.
This year, there seems to be a synergy between the two of them and a comfort level where he feels like a leader on that field. That's number one when you watch him. And number two, it just feels like he's in more sync with this particular defensive scheme. You know, going from Saleh to D'Amico, everybody thinks they're exactly the same. There are some differences. There are some wrinkle differences. And D'Amico played linebacker in the league. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think he is primed for a big year this year.
I think his numbers are going to go up as far as interceptions. Like, he's one of the best in the league at disguising, possibly going for the run and then just dropping back and actually being in pass coverage. He's one of the best in the league at doing that. I think his sack numbers are going to go up. He had 3 in 2019. He had 1 in 2020, and he had half a sack in 2021. I think he's going to eclipse those numbers. So I'm expecting a huge year from Fred Warner this year.
Yeah, I am too. He does a really good job baiting quarterbacks as a linebacker into throwing the ball right to him. I mean, he's really sneaky at that. And the one thing that I've really enjoyed at the few practices that we've been to is seeing him versus Trey Lance in terms of like setting up their perspective side of the ball for success. Fred's talking and chirping and moving this guy and moving that guy. Like, he is, no doubt about it, the quarterback of that defense. When you watch him, Fred Warner,
right.
And him going up against the quarterback, Trey Lance, as he's trying to, Trey's audibling and moving guys and changing protections. The chess match between the two of them has been really fun.
I agree. And just seeing him throughout practice, I think he's going to have a huge year. You know what we're not getting? And I think people are not cautiously optimistic, because that's what you're kind of putting with Trey Lance right now. But Deebo Samuel's not getting zero doubt that Deebo's going to ball out this year. We're not getting any of that.
Why is that?
We're getting more Brandon Ayuk than actually Deebo Samuel. From the 415, Ayuk is going to have a fantastic season. From the, where was it? From the 415 also, another 415 number. My answer is Ayuk. Dude's a stud, going to carry momentum from last year and renewed confidence into this season. That's Jason from Nevada.
It's just so hard for me to predict wide receiver output in this offense, because it does feel like they just try to attack whatever the weakness is. That's a Belichick trait.
Right.
Like, defensively, I'm going to take away what you do best.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, that's something that's his hallmark. And now I look at Shanahan. If I tried to explain to you what their offense was, everyone's going to first say, well, you're going to run the ball, which is obvious. But then, like, in the passing game, there's a lot of slants, a lot of smoke screens, a lot of one read, clearly defined throws. But it's not predicated on throwing to one position or one guy. It feels like they do kind of go series to series, play to play, game to game. Who gives us the best opportunity to pop one here? You know what I mean? Like, against Green Bay, it does feel like Kittle always shows up because he destroys their linebackers. You know what I mean? Against the Rams, who always shows up? Deebo Samuel, because they don't have anybody who can run with him at linebacker and at the cornerback position.
If you're a 49er fan, who, in your mind, there's zero doubt that this dude's going to ball out this year? 888-957-9570.
No Kittle. I haven't seen any George Kittle. Have we
not
forgotten
seen that.
He's one of the top tight ends? He was awesome for a 3-week stretch at the end of last year.
And actually, I do got something on Kittle because Mike McDaniel over there in Miami, I think he's starting to realize that he doesn't exactly have a George Kittle. And what's happening in Miami shows how special George Kittle is
Gesicki?
As a complete tight end. And I do want to get to that. But right now, Shasky, it is time to give away that Kirby's gift card. Now, Kirby's, you've been talking about it all week, Shasky. What is Kirby's exactly?
This is what Kirby's is, all right? It is a app and online site where the mechanic comes to you. It's very simple. I've got car problems, all right? Well, in other, equivalent metaphors, hey, I'm hungry. Let's order from food delivery app X. Well, same thing here. My car has problems. Let's have the mechanic come to me. This is an online service where you can have your brakes, you can have your check engine light, you can have an oil change. Whatever it is with the vehicle, the mechanic will come to you. No mess ups, no fake problem with your engine, no waiting around, no dropping off the car, going back home, waiting to hear back from the mechanic 3 days later. No. None of that. You stay home. You're working from home. You can have the mechanic come to you in a tight little window and everything is transparent and upfront. That's what Kirby is.
Man, I mean, it's a good deal. 415-951-2386. Fifth caller to the contest line, 415-951-2386. Then you are going to win the gift card to Kirby's, and they can come right to your door.
We need a nickname for Brandon Ayuk, and I've thought about it long and hard.
What's that?
Snoopy.
Why Snoopy?
He's out of the doghouse.
That should have been given to him in week 7, last year. Shout out to Brandon Ayuk getting in that doghouse because he created that segment, the doghouse, on the pregame show, and that's what that's based on. But back to the George Kittle thing. I don't know if you're seeing what's going on in Miami right now, but Mike McDaniel is trying to, of course, he was the former offensive coordinator / run game coordinator with the 49ers. He was kind of an unsung hero that nobody really talked about until he became the offensive coordinator last season. Like Kyle Shanahan always calling the plays, but as far as play design, Mike McDaniel was taking up a lot of that. He's an absolute film. I love Mike McDaniel, actually. I'm going to be rooting for Miami just because of Mike McDaniel. But he's trying to instill that outside zone run in Miami because they got a lot of speed guys. But Mike Gesicki is the number 1 tight end. And it doesn't look like he's fitting in very well because he still needs to become that blocking tight end, one where they're running this play. And Ted Nguyen did an article on it from the Athletic. You know Ted Nguyen. He's a football savant. They're trying to run this play that you'd seen run with the 49ers where they got the tight end lined up just outside the left tackle, shading the right tackle, Then you got the fullback lined up right behind him. Then they run a little running back counter play, and they just show Mike Gesicki completely fail on it. It's like that's exactly what George Kittle was doing. That's what he was a pro at, just going across the line of scrimmage, then opening up a lane for the running back to go through. So that's just a little something on Kittle.
I heard he's basically playing wide receiver, Gesicki. But
yeah,
the point is that when you have Juszczyk and you have George Kittle, that gives you a schematic advantage in terms of inline blocking. Totally. And both of their abilities to catch the ball down the field and be dynamic makes you have to honor that aspect of their game and at least stay home and not crash in the run game.
Zero doubt in your mind, 888-957-9570. Which 49er player will ball out this season? Let's go to Danker in the city. Danker wants to weigh in. What's going on, Danker?
Gentlemen, so I was going to mention Kittle, and I have one other guy, and I'll tell you the actual main reason why it's Kittle. The obvious is he has that arm, or Lance has the arm, and he'll hit the third level, so safeties can't cheat like they did with Jimmy. But off the play action, you need to keep someone home to spy Lance. So then Kittle, when he does break, like you guys just said, they have another responsibility, and Kittle will get behind that. So that's huge. And I think Tarvarius Ward,
good call.
Because he's not like your normal corner when the ball is coming to the receiver. He doesn't wait for it. He goes and high points the ball. So if Kinlaw does take that next step, and Bosa's like Curry, he creates more open space because you have to double team and always know where he is. You're going to have a lot more, opportunities breaking on the ball. Hopefully we get that pressure. So, yeah, I think Ward is a special corner. And Kittle, I think Kittle's just going to have a monster year.
Yeah.
But let's go Niners.
Let's go.
Appreciate you, Danker. Kittle's a good one.
It is.
When you see that dude, and he's just standing on the sideline at practice, Like, I didn't realize how big he was without the pads on. I guess, I don't know, maybe the pads on television make him look a little smaller than he actually is, but when you see him in person,
he's a monster.
It's like, how does this dude not ball out? How do you not make this guy your pick?
He's so fast for his size. Like, I know that sounds like, duh, Joe, he's fast. But, like, no, you know what I mean? Like, seriously, like,
yeah.
He is extremely quick for how big he is, and he's humongous. You don't realize how jacked he is until you see him in person. The other element that I think Niner fans have become very spoiled to, Vernon Davis and George Kittle, great pass catchers. Vernon, not the greatest hands, but he could be very dynamic once the ball's in his hands. Unbelievable inline blockers. I mean, think of how good they have been. So blessed to have maybe the two best blocking tight ends who are also great pass catchers in their respective eras. I mean, like, we all love Kelsey. Kelsey's probably a better pass catcher than George Kittle. I don't think that's hyperbole. He's great. Like, Kelsey's incredible. Is he the blocker that Kittle is? Probably not. Gronk is. I will give Gronk his flowers.
Well, let's see with Kelsey what's going to happen when he is the primary receiver at this point.
You're skeptical?
Well, no, I'm not skeptical on Kelsey, but I do think that numbers are going to go down as defenses are primarily focusing on him with Tyreek being out. Like, Tyreek opens up a lot of the field for Travis Kelsey to get those passes wide open over the middle. I do think he's great. I'm not trying to take anything away from Kelsey, but I do think there's going to be a regression with Tyreek Hill not on the team. But that's...
No, that's fair.
This is Kansas City Sports Radio, Chiefs Talk. Just kidding.
I like that. I mean, you just turned into it. No, but the way I hear Niner fans talk, they're like, oh, Kittle's the best. He's awesome. And I think at times he can be the best. To me, though, Kelsey feels like the clear-cut number one pass catcher in the game at that position. I mean, we're splitting hairs because they're both great players, but his body of work is ridiculous. I mean, the amount of 1,000-yard seasons, 1,200-yard seasons in a row is just incredible. He is so good.
Man, by the way, Danker also brought up Tarvarius Ward, which is an interesting one. We actually got some good news yesterday. Tarvarius Ward, who's been out for the past couple of weeks with a groin injury, it looks like he's going to be practicing with the team following their preseason game against the Texans tonight. So Tarvarius Ward, if he's practicing with the team, you could safely assume that he's going to be ready for week 1.
He was the most surprising player that I didn't even think about heading into camp, and I watched and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
He's really good.
He stood out.
Right?
It was one of those dudes where you're looking at the where you got the, they give you the roster or whatever, they give you the depth chart, and you're just like, wait, who's that? Who's 35? Oh, that's that guy that they signed for 3 years, $40 million? That guy?
But isn't that kind of crazy that in years past, if the Niners had spent a lot of money in free agency on one player, we'd be hyper-focused on him. On this team, it's like an afterthought. That's how loaded they are. And I think the drama of Debo and Jimmy and all these things have overshadowed it. But... like, I just go back to Nate Clements, because when they signed Nate Clements, it was like, he's got to be the savior. And anytime Nate Clements didn't do anything, everyone lost their mind. Feels like Tarvarius Ward, although got paid very handsomely, is kind of flying under the radar.
Yeah, remember, like, for example, it's because they got so many of these big money players that they've already paid money for, like George Kittle and Debo and Warner, like we've mentioned. Bosa is going to be the next one up. Like, remember how much recognition that Weston Richburg was getting after every game just because he was like that first free agent that John Lynch had paid? It's like, look at Weston Richburg. He's making this money and not doing anything. Weston Richburg,
The center?
Yeah.
So I had tweeted out this is going way back. I had tweeted something out about Weston Richburg always being injured, and out of nowhere, his dad... I
remember this.
I didn't tag him, but his dad came in at me and said that the team misdiagnosed the injury and that he played through all these injuries that were unrealized, and I didn't know what I was talking about. And I was like, you know what? I respect it, Dad, because if my dad was on social media defending me, I would understand it.
Well, when we used to be the A station and Marcus Simeon was a part of the A's at the time, when Simeon would be,
his dad
was one of the worst defenders in the league. His dad would call in to back him up. So shout out to Marcus Simeon's dad. Shout out to all the dads out there.
Yeah.
But continuing on here with the 49ers. Tonight, you got preseason week 3 against the Texans, and we're really looking forward to it. We've been talking about guys who are zero doubt in your mind they're going to ball out this year. Well, you know what? We're not going to see those guys tonight. Like, a lot of those guys are going to be getting rest. You're going to be seeing Trey Lance, though. And I think you could be seeing him for the first half of this game. But before we get to Trey Lance and how much he needs to play, we're actually going to be joined by Jason Aponte, host of the Sprint Ride Option podcast. If you follow anything 49ers on social media, you've seen this dude before. Can't wait to talk to him, get his thoughts coming up at 8 o'clock. But I think tonight's game, outside of watching Lance, I think you're going to see the reason as to why, not only just because of what Nate Sudfeld or Brock Purdy are going to do, but I think you're going to see a lot of the depth with this team. Look, I personally think they need to keep 5 running backs along with Juszczyk, keep 5 receivers, and then keep 2 quarterbacks. Like, I think that's what they need to do. I don't need the 3 quarterback thing happening.
So then you're cutting Purdy?
That's the tough part, because you've paid Sudfeld that guaranteed money. I actually don't know whether that has anything to do with him possibly going to the practice squad or not, because there's a few different rules when it comes to putting players on that practice squad. But if you put Brock Purdy there, there's a chance that somebody could pick him up off waivers just as much as Nate Sudfeld.
Most teams are only suiting up 2 quarterbacks these days, so the opportunity for a landing spot would be kind of minimal.
Yeah.
I don't know who's backing up Joe Burrow, but I'm looking at just a Shanahan tree, and if you put Brock Purdy on the practice squad, it does feel like, let's just say Cincinnati, hypothetically, because of their coach and his ties to Shanahan, that would be a logical landing spot in my estimation as a backup.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Zach Taylor. He's a Shanahan guy.
Interesting.
I like Zach Taylor. I liked him before they went on a Super Bowl run.
Yeah. So I think if you watch this game tonight, outside of watching Trey Lance, I think you're going to see the reason as to why they should keep 2 running backs, and also the reason why Jimmy G is probably going to get cut. Because you don't need to pay this dude.
We're not keeping 4?
You don't need to pay this dude $24 million to keep him as a backup on this team. You do not need to do that. If Trey Lance gets hurt, then honestly, I mean, I'm not going to say you have to wave the white flag. Nobody ever wants to do that during the season. But once your starting quarterback goes down, does anyone really expect, an Eagles type of run? I don't think so. I think tonight, just as much as Trey Lance, I'm looking forward to watching the running backs and how that all shakes down, because there's going to be a lot there.
To me, I feel like Sermon is fighting for his roster spot. I got nothing on that other than the gut and just watching it. Mason seems to run harder, the kid from Georgia Tech, and it feels to me like TDP was clearly a Shanahan kind of a pick, Anthony Lynn kind of a pick. Like, I think the 2 of them are on board with that kind of guy. Sermon, I don't know. I don't really know what his role is.
So you had Brian Baldinger on the morning roast earlier. Brian Baldinger going to be joining us on Tuesdays at 7:30, if I'm not mistaken, right? It is Tuesdays at 7:30 going into this football season. Just want to be accurate with that. But Brian Baldinger was on earlier, and last year, the way that he talked about Sermon, there was some high expectation for him going into the preseason. But Baldy says that he just hasn't seen that flash from Trey Sermon that he's wanted to see.
They got to be able to flash. You haven't seen that flash from Trey Sermon.
Yeah.
And I don't either. I don't see it. And I don't know if they see it. Because, I know he had the injuries last year. He got a chance early. But I never saw it last year. And I just don't see that yet from Trey. And that's unusual for a back. Usually it shouldn't take you very long.
I mean, do you think there's a chance they just keep Trey Sermon on this team just because he's a 3rd-round pick? Do you think the draft status has anything to do with it?
They cut Joe Williams after year 1,
true.
and he was a 4th rounder pick.
Yeah. Shout out to Utah.
I think they are way less emotional about the picks than we think they are. Now, Solomon Thomas, did they probably keep him longer than they should have? Maybe, but I don't know who's trading for him at that salary point that he had, because he was on his rookie year. Number 3 overall, you're making like $9, $10, $11 million a year, even in year 3. Look at Dante Pettis, for example. I think it was 2 full seasons before they moved off of him, and they quietly just suffocated his playing time. And then he wasn't getting dressed and stuff like that. 2nd-round pick, kind of a high 2nd-round pick. Sermon as a 3rd, I don't think they'd have any qualms with either trading him for a pick, I don't know who would take him,
right,
or just releasing him.
I mean, I think that's what they're going to do. I think it's going to end up like that's what makes tonight so interesting. It's like preseason game. Who cares? Get me to the regular season. But the final preseason game, when guys are fighting for a roster spot, and the running backs, I know you're wondering, like, why would anyone care about the 5th running back on the team? Well, last year, Deebo Samuel was put in week 10, not because Shanahan thought it was going to change up the offense. He put Deebo Samuel in out of necessity because he didn't have that many running backs in the room. So it's like, you know what? We need to give Deebo maybe 5 or 6 carries a game from now on, just because our other running backs are hurt. Jeff Wilson comes back.
He's playing tonight.
Then Jeff Wilson comes back. Can't wait for that for Jeff Wilson. Elijah Mitchell's going to be your number 1, but I really think you need to keep these 5 guys on the team, these 5 running backs, along with Juszczyk added on there. So technically you'd have 6 in the backfield. Like, I personally think that's what they need to do. And tonight, you're going to be seeing Trey Sermon and Jordan Mason, both of those guys. Jordan Mason, the undrafted free agent, you're going to be seeing them fight for a roster spot, I think.
And anybody who doesn't think that Shanahan has the guts to keep an undrafted free agent, can I introduce you to Matt Breda?
Oh, Matt Breda.
He served his purpose, though. He was a really good player for the team, and then it got a little too physical, and he got the fumbles. I mean, look at Raheem Mostert. He did one thing really well. Extremely fast, dynamic back. I love Mostert. I would want a Mostert type as one of my backup running backs all day, every day. Every time he touches the ball, anywhere on the field, he could go 80. Anywhere on the field because of that speed. And that's why I look at someone like Mason and I say to myself, he doesn't have the speed element, but he's got that bruiser mentality and that size, and it's just so hard to find those guys.
Yep. Ty Davis-Price, too, is another one of those guys who's just
I like him, too.
He's going to be fantastic out of LSU. I think he's going to have a really good year, and I think his game's going to translate really well.
Who's not going to have a good year?
Ooh, who's going to 100% doubt in your mind that this dude's going to play well?
I think Jake Brendel's going to struggle at times.
Jake Brendel is. I think so, too.
I'm very interested to see how this offensive line is going to look over the first 6 or 7 weeks. I think it's going to be a work in progress. I also think that safety is going to be up and down at times. I think Hufanga, what's going on with Mosley in terms of his health, him and Ward. I think, I'm a little worried about the back end of the secondary because it can get picked on. I don't care how good your secondary is. The game is set up for offensive explosion because of the rules, and then the offensive line and ability to open holes for some of these guys and protect the young quarterback.
Yeah, offensive line is the question mark. Out of anyone else, like the only guy I see struggling in week 1 is probably going to be Tarvarius Ward because he's going to be backing up Jimmy Ward since Jimmy Ward's not going to be in week 1. At least that's what the outlook is.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to struggle because we've seen him struggle in the preseason already. But other than that, like we got a text here from the 408, after listening to you guys, it seems 16-1 will be a disappointing season, given how great everyone at every position apparently is on the 49ers. 16-1 is, no, we're not saying they need to be 16-1, but with the way that the NFC is shaping out right now, and the way that the 49ers look, you at least need to make the playoffs. Like with this talent, there's no excuse for not making the playoffs with this talented roster.
Well, here's the excuse. Your Achilles heel, which could be the offensive line.
True.
Like the offensive line is, and Mark made a great point, Mark Willard, where he's like, what has sabotaged the Giants season this year? Oh, people are going to go platoons and this. No, it's the bullpen. Like, it's a direct correlation. The bullpen has been horrific, and it has sabotaged whatever slim chances they had at making the playoffs. What can derail any season? Offensive line. Secondary, like big cluster injuries or underperformance at specific position groups.
I wish off the top of my head I could come up with some sort of example as to, like a bullpen that was subpar, yet that team still made the playoffs because
Dodgers.
Their lineup was that good.
But they had good closers. Right? Like, I'm just saying, the Dodgers bullpen has been their soft spot, but it's still been better than league average.
But the offensive line still has Trent Williams. They still have the best left tackle in the game. Spencer Burford, the rookie offensive lineman at guard, we've seen rookie linemen drafted in the middle rounds. We've seen these dudes have stud seasons their rookie year and turn into something great. I think Burford can be that dude. So really, at right tackle, Colt McKivitz, they talk very highly of him with the 49ers. I'm not too high on Colt McKivitz, but I think that this team, with how skilled they are, even with that offensive line, I still think playoffs need to be there.
No doubt. The other element that I cannot ignore, special teams. I like Ray McLeod. I hope he's the returner. It's tough to tell, in practice if they're just catching off the jugs machine. They were one of the worst special teams I've ever seen last year. Now, it's ironic because they won in Green Bay on a special teams play, right? That's true irony there. It's one of the greatest special teams play in 49er history, and yet they were one of the worst units in 49er history. So, but that's an area, new coach, a bunch of new players. We will not know until the first month of the season.
How much you want to see Trey Lance play today? How much you want to see? Because we're going to be joined by Jason Aponte here in about 7 minutes. Coming up at 8 o'clock, Jason Aponte, Sprint Right Option Podcast. Want to get his thoughts on Trey Lance, how much Trey Lance should play tonight, if at all. You think he should play? You want him to get reps.
He needs to play until they score. Once they score, even if it's a field goal, I don't even care. Play until they score. I would love a touchdown drive, but to me, you got to play until they score.
I know it's football, and I know that it's tough to avoid injury, but if you're going to roll him out there during the preseason and use Zach Wilson as the example, see what happened to Zach Wilson? Well, look at what Trey Lance did in his time with the against the Packers compared to what Zach Wilson did in his preseason game. When Trey Lance had some room to run, you know what he did? He slid. No, he hasn't slid. No, you talked about that after the game. He slid. Like, that was one of your favorite aspects of
Thank God.
that was one of your favorite plays from that game,
because
it's
the little stuff.
He had the wherewithal to actually do that. Zach Wilson, I feel terrible for him and sad that he's not going to start out the season, but he could have avoided that because he tried to cut back on a defender and juke him out, and then he ended up spraining his MCL or whatever it was. So I think that the Niners and Trey Lance are going to be smart enough to try and avoid injury, at least for a half of football.
Well, that's a great example right there. Everyone goes, what can you get out of the preseason that you can't do at practice? Well, at practice, you don't even touch the quarterback. So one area, one little tiny nuance, Trey sliding for the first time ever in any game of his entire NFL, high school, college, playing the quarterback position career, he slid finally once. If that's all that comes out of the preseason from playing in a live rep game, I'll take it. Like, I will take it. Like, those are the little tiny things that we don't account for as fans and as media members that I do think can be beneficial for the regular season.
Like, I don't blame anybody if they're scared of a risk of injury. I don't blame you for thinking
scared
that.
of it.
I mean, of course, but personally, I just want to see him play. I want to see him play in the first half. I don't want to see any more of that. Maybe a little. I mean, maybe with one drive remaining in the first half, but I also want to see the 2-minute drill ran as well and see how.
Oh yeah,
see how
he hasn't done that.
No,
really.
he hasn't.
That's a good call.
I mean, because that's going to be a staple of the Shanahan offense right there. See how he runs the hurry up. So I do want to see that. But you could get those reps too during the regular season. I understand that. I can see opposing viewpoints too.
I like him, and I'm rooting for him. But tonight, boy, it'd be nice if Davis Mills struggled. Maybe they'd want Jimmy.